Cosplay in the Kitchen, where I'm coming at you from a slightly different angle tonight because I'm trying to get slightly better lighting. You see, I usually film these when my wife is out, and she is out at the theatre at the moment. It's quite late, it's very dark, and I'm trying to show you things, and the lighting's terrible. So, new angle. You can see my oven, which I broke by punching it while I was playing VR many years ago, and I've never been able to fix. Anyway, so today what I'm doing is a breakdown of my Ghoul cosplay. A few people have asked me, can I break it down and show what it's made out of? To which I'm going to say, yes, that's what I'll do now. However, before I do, there's a couple of little things I wanted to point out. One is that this is by no means a screen accurate cosplay. So there are a couple of cosplayers out there doing fantastic work with the Ghoul, where it is screen accurate, the shirt is screen accurate, coat is screen accurate, they look amazing. This is not me saying that I can compete with them, this is not me saying my cosplay is as good as them, and it's not me saying that this will get you a screen accurate costume. Mine is, I think, pretty good for one that's kind of been assembled from bits I found, but it is by no means the best out there. But hopefully it's still quite a useful little guide you will find something useful from if you want to cosplay this character. Secondly, what you will quickly find, and you will hear a lot, is the phrase of, I bought this on Vinted, because I got nearly everything secondhand. And that means what I've done here is not something where you will be able to follow this guide, click, 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 and buy the exact same thing that I did from the exact same source. But hopefully it will give you an idea of the sort of thing to look for, what you can find, what you can do, and how you can modify it. With that said, let's get started. I'm going to start from the bottom. I'm going to work my way up the costume, which means I'm going to start off with the boots. So here you have the boots that I use, and they are just standard ankle cowboy boots. These are not screen accurate, so his has got what I believe you call a mock toe, where the stitching is kind of round here. I didn't get that. Instead, I have got standard ankle cowboy boots that I got for very cheap. I paid, I think it was £5.50 for these second hand, and the reason I got them is they were very, very cheap because they were missing one of these rings on here. So what I've done is I've stuck a little bit of wire through there. Now that detail is not in his costume, but I like it because it's just a bit apocalyptic. You know, he's been wearing these boots for 200 years. The idea that something has broken at some point and he's jury-rigged a little fix is something I like. It's a little detail that is, like I said, not screen accurate, but something that I like. And then you need the spurs. They do not, unfortunately, go jingle jangle. But yes, you can get these spurs. These are brass military spurs. A friend of mine found them in an army surplus store for, I think he paid £3 for them, and passed them over to me, which was very kind of him. I really like them because they're kind of that brass, worn look. Again, Cooper's spurs, I think, have stars on. These don't, but they're nice, worn, weathered looking spurs. If you don't want to do that, you can buy fancy dress spurs that are also metal for really cheap and just strap them on. And they're just as good, but these have that weathered brass look, so I like them. One little bit of weathering on this for fun is, I don't know if you can see that big scratch down there? I've left that on there. That's a bit of authentic cowboy weathering because I went to a Wild West night where I wore these and they tried to teach me to line dance, which if you know me, you will know I'm really bad at dancing. And while crossing over my feet, I actually did that with the spurs. So that piece of weathering is probably the most authentically cowboy bit of weathering you can get because I scratched my boots with my spurs while trying to line dance. So there you go. Anyway, that's the boots. Next up are the trousers. Now these are actually an upgrade from when I put up the pictures of the costume on the Fallout pages that kind of got the people asking. So Cooper's trousers have got a very, very faint pinstripe. And I'm not sure how well you can see it in this light. Hopefully you can see it. Now, I was quite picky with what I was looking at. Brown trousers with a pinstripe, but it's quite a faint pinstripe. And what it is, it's one solid pinstripe, and it's that one really faint pinstripe, and it's one solid. But they are really faded. When I looked at sort of cosplay sites doing this, I always think they've made these trousers look like the Joker. You know, they're like black with yellow stripes. They're all like a zoot suit from the 1920s. They're not. They're much more subtle than that, which is what this is. So I got a subtle pair of brown trousers for £1 on Vinted. Now the great thing about this is, of course, you can find anything on Vinted, and it doesn't matter if it's old, it doesn't matter if it's worn, it doesn't matter if it's a bit faded, because that's the look you want. So these were sort of being sold as old, second-hand, well-worn, exactly what I wanted. But, of course, they are going to need a bit of weathering, which is what I've done. So do you see these patches on here? This is weathering. Now, this is my favourite technique for weathering this stuff, is this looks quite good. It looks like sand. It's not. It's a paint. So I just buy an acrylic sand paint. You can find it on Amazon. It's really cheap. I just get that and I just weather it in. I just work it in with a wet sponge. So I wet it down and I work it in with a sponge. One of the tricks I like to do with trousers, whenever I weather them, and again, it's not really screen accurate, just something I like, is I always put 2 big patches on the knees. Because I always think, you're going to be kneeling down a lot, over 200 years in the wasteland, and that's probably where most of the sand and most of the dirt is going to get. And then I just put little bits on there, so I try and think like, you know, where you might get a little bit, where you might rub your hands on it, you might get a bit of weathering. Put a bit on the back, even though you're not going to see this under the coat, because, you know, you might sat down in the dirt. So I just try and do that, give it a little bit more authenticity and a little bit more weathering. So there they are, weathered up. I do tend to go a little bit extreme on the weathering on these, just to make it more noticeable, because they're mostly going to be hidden behind the coat. But those are the trousers. So these are just a generic brand. I don't even know who made them. It doesn't say, but I just found them, like I said, on Vinted for £1. Any brown pinstripes will do. So those are the trousers. Now, I did say at the start, none of this is screen accurate. Technically, that's not quite true. There is one piece of this that is screen accurate, and that is the belt. Now, not the belt itself, but the belt buckle. So Cooper wears this belt buckle here. There we go. This very specific scorpion belt buckle. And I think I've got that upside down. It actually goes around that way. And that belt buckle is the exact one that he wears. And you can get it on Amazon for about £15, I think I paid for it. So it's actually one of the more expensive bits of costumes, this belt buckle. But that's the exact one he wears. And the fact you can get the exact one so easily meant I really wanted to get it. Now you do just get the buckle. And as you can see there, I've just again got my sand paint and worked it in over it to give it a look of being weathered and old, because he's been wearing this belt for 200 years. And he has. This is the belt he wears with his cowboy costume. And then the belt, I just bought a very cheap cowboy belt. Now normally I like real leather, but this is just that sort of cheapy, sort of half fakey, plasticky leather. But it had the embossing on it, which I like, for giving it the Wild West look. And then I just, again, rubbed the sand paint into it just to make it look a little bit more worn. So that is the Scorpion belt. Which, by the way, does go up that way, I think. I'm having to think about it now. But anyway, so that's his Scorpion belt. And then, of course, the final bit on the trousers that you need is the gun holster. And again, this is a vintage find. And this is an authentic-ish, well, I don't know if it's authentic, but it's a real leather holster, a real old leather Western holster. And I found it on Vinted. I think I paid £10 for it. You might find one, I've seen them crop up for like 15, 20 quid sometimes. You might get lucky. If not, there are quite good like fancy dress leather ones that you can just paint up. But this is the holster I got. A couple of things on this one. I just stuck some plastic bullets in the back that I got for cheap. Again, you don't really see the back, but I just thought there's something there then. This is something I've added very recently. So we all knew that Cooper has a Bowie knife because he pulls it out a few times. But I hadn't ever been able to really see where it was. They've really recently released a nice promo poster where he's kind of sweeping his coat back and you can see it hanging. So what I've done is I've taken an old one that I had from an old Jurassic Park costume and just hung it on there. This isn't accurate at all. His is like a massive chunky cowboy Bowie knife. But I thought, I've got one, it's mostly hidden under the coat and at least it's there if anyone kind of wants to see whether I've got a knife or not. One fun thing with this holster is it's very, very old. What that means is this is all rusted up, which is lovely because again, I'm in an apocalypse. I don't mind that it's rusted up. But unfortunately, this is rock solid. So the holster has got no give whatsoever. What that means is this is not Cooper's gun, because I have got Cooper's gun, the Don Pedro. It will not fit in that holster in a million years. There is nothing I can do except maybe split it and put a piece in there. But because this is a vintage piece, I don't really want to do that. So all I do is I carry the gun in my hand as a prop. And if I ever don't want the gun out, I just put it away. And then I just have this one sat in the holster because you just see the handle, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I can't actually carry my gun in my holster. And then moving on, we have got the shirt. Now, this shirt is completely inaccurate in every way. So people who are close observers will know that Cooper's cowboy shirt that he wears as the Ghoul is the same one he wears in the opening scene of the show and in his kind of Cooper Howard cowboy scenes, which is a quite a vibrant blue shirt, and these two patches are white with scorpion embroidery, and then he's got some embroidery on there. Now what I did is I went and I found a dark blue shirt, so I wanted something looking a bit worn, Western shirt, and I found this. These bits were not any colour on there at all. They were blue, solid blue, but they did have this tree embroidery. So all I did is I painted them white with some acrylic paint, and then I went over it all with a brown paint to sponge it down and make it look a bit more weathered up. Because you barely see this under the vest. So that's what I wanted to do there, is just sort of weather that up and make it look like that. And then there's also scorpion embroidery on her neck. Now I didn't have a scorpion embroidery, but I did have some of this gold embroidery left over from when I made a Zorro hat. So I just stuck it on there like that. Again, you barely see the collar. It's got that embroidered detail then. Apart from that, this shirt's actually really nice. It's a Western shirt. It's got pop buttons. Cooper's shirt has pop buttons, not traditional plastic buttons. It's a really nice hot shirt, this one actually. I kind of regret ruining it because it's really nice to wear. But that's the shirt, so that's how I did that one. Now we've got the kind of bulk of that bit out of the way. What I'm going to do is transform into it and then carry on so we can add the layers as we go. There's no point in doing trousers, you can't see below there. So, without further ado, and there we are. Now I'm aware that you can't see I put the trousers on, but I have. One little detail I forgot to mention on this shirt, by the way, is I also painted these lines on it going down. I don't know if you can see them. Because again, his has got sort of embroidered lines down the front here. I didn't want to embroider them, I just painted them. Because again, it's meant to look weathered and old. I think it works, I think it looks quite good. So the very next bit that I needed then is his waistcoat. And again, this is where you can look around on Vinted and get something like this for quite cheap. And that's exactly what I did. I got this. A proper Western cowboy waistcoat, really thick, heavy leather. That's the brand, which interestingly is also the brand of my duster coat, by the way, if you want to look. Which is, I don't know what it is, it's the originals. I can't even read the top bit, but that's what it is. And it's very cowboy because it's got cowboy on it, of course. Anyway, this is really thick, heavy leather, looks really good. It's not quite screen accurate. Cooper's has got a line down it here. And his is a little bit shorter than mine. But again, it's full heavy leather. It's an authentic piece. I paid, I think, 10 quid for this. You see them crop up every so often for 10, 15 quid. You can get suede ones if you can't get a full leather one. But it's nice, this one. All I did is I got it. It was already a bit warm, but I just got some light sandpaper. Rubbed over it with sandpaper to weather it up a little bit more. And there it is. Now, the only problem with this one is it's very old, stiff leather, particularly around the buttons, and the buttons are old and very, very stiff, making it very, very hard to undo and do up. Something I struggle with. So all I ended up doing is I just pull it on over my head, done up. And it looks a bit silly. It's really hard to do. And for that reason, I'm not going to do a clever cut where I click my fingers. I'm going to put it on camera, and you can watch me flail as I try and get it on. So please enjoy this lovely, dignified putting on of a waistcoat. Look at that. I'm sure that's exactly how the Ghoul dresses himself, don't you think? And then I would pull that out over. So there we go. So that's the waistcoat. I'm quite happy with this. To be honest, like I said, it's not quite screen accurate. You can't quite see it. Maybe if I go back, it doesn't come all the way down just. It shows a bit of the shirt, and you see the belt. That is how his should be. It is short. It does let the bottom of his shirt show through. It's actually a little bit shorter than this one. So that's kind of working the way I want it to. And then we get on to the duster, which is one of the things I get the most questions about, or the most people saying, oh, I like that. So here is the duster. And once again, it's that brand look. There we go. And here it is from the front. Here it is from the back. And here is the bottom where I've done a lot of work. Now, I have done an awful lot to this duster to try and make it look like the Ghouls. The duster itself, I originally paid £10 for, used for a completely different costume. Then I came across a slightly better one for that costume in a charity shop, again for £10, and I bought it, and then this one going spare. So when it came to me wanting to do this costume, this was the catalyst. I was like, I've got the coat, can I make it look like the Ghouls? So the first thing I had to do was put buttons down the front. So Cooper's has got buttons down the front, and it kind of hangs open and they show the buttons. This doesn't. This actually had poppers. So what I did is I had to fold the front out, like how it sits, take a bit of brown fabric I had left over. This was a bit of brown waterproof fabric, which was in fact off the capelet bit, off the other coat that I bought. Stuck it over that, and then just super glued the buttons going down. They're not functional, they're just glued on. And since I posted the original picture of this, I've actually moved those buttons a bit. I've rearranged them. They were originally a little bit too high up. But I did that. And then I just painted the entire thing. I got different shades of brown, different colours, and just sponged it over the entire coat in different stages, different consistencies, different patches, and basically just painted the whole coat a darker brown. And what that's done is given it this really weathered up, battered look. But then of course I had to do the bottom. So the bottom of Cooper's coat is absolutely shredded from years and years of being worn. So I just tried to replicate that. All I did is I got some scissors, I kind of put little cuts in it, and then I would tear it. So if you've never torn up fabric for weathering before, it's better to tear it than cut it. Because if you tear it, you get that sort of frayed edge look. Do you know what you want? So just put a little slit in and then rip it. And I ripped all that all along there. And that is how I did his coat. Again, it is not screen accurate by any stretch of the imagination, but it is, I think, quite cool looking, and it looks enough like the Ghoul's coat that when I'm wearing it, it works, and people really like it. I get like a really, I get a really good reaction from the coat. It tends to be everyone's favourite bit, and it is cool. Who doesn't love a duster? It's fun. Anyway, so that is the coat, and then, of course, moving on, we've got the Bandelier. Now, I'm going to have to go and get the Bandelier at the gun because I've misplaced it. So give me a moment and then we will transition into the next. Sorry about that. Hopefully due to the miracle of post-editing, something flashy happened there, I don't know what. But yes, I had to get my gun because this is the gun that goes on Cooper's back, or what I use for it. Now, I got given this very nicely, again, by a friend who had it knocking around in his garage for years. It's a nice sort of Western embossed shotgun style holster. What I will say is that Cooper's isn't actually embossed like that, but this is old, it's knackered, it looks the part, I like it. What I had to do though, is attach a belt to the back. And I've attached a belt like that to the back because this is where it's going to go on the Bandelier. So I'm going to actually strap this onto the Bandelier using this belt, which I will show you in a minute. So that is the holster. You may be noticing, again, if you've worked with Ghoul, this is the gun that I'm using, completely wrong. His gun is a lever action rifle with one of the kind of lever handles here. I just haven't been able to get one yet. This is an old gun that I used for a different cosplay. In fact, I think it was Jurassic Park once again. It was Owen's rifle with a scope. I took the scope off. And I just use it as a stand-in for his gun. At some point I'd like to get a lever action one. But that's what that is. Hope I don't drop the holster. You can tell I don't do this very often, can you? Because there's no like smooth edits or retakes. Everything stays in. But then there's the actual Bandelier itself, and this is the Bandelier itself. And this is something that I have assembled myself from a bigger Bandelier. It's like that sketch bit in The Simpsons. He made the chili spoon himself from an even bigger spoon. But no, this was a gun belt, is how it originally started life. And it had full cartridges, so each one of these in the middle was also a cartridge. Now the Ghouls are spaced out, so what I did is with a pair of scissors very carefully is cut off each extra bullet holder. And then I also had to unthread them because they were also solid on the end, and here's the bullets go through. So I had to then cut the end off each one so I could thread the bullet through, which is what I then did. These two brass bits at the bottom are just two old brass buttons that I just stuck on to give the look of rivets. And then I cut off the end and attached it at a 90-degree angle because that's how it goes round and then up around your back. And then I stuck some spare old bits of leather out knocking around in a little crisscross because this has a little crisscross to make it look the part there. So then all I have to do is attach it to this. If you're wondering where the bullets came from, some of them are just those cheap plastic bullets that I was using in the back of my holster. And some of them were actually very kindly 3D printed for me as a present from a friend who made me the Don Pedro gun, which I'll get to in a minute. It could actually load them all, but I decided not to use them for that because the gun never quite stayed closed while it was fully loaded. So what I ended up doing is gluing the gun shut and then having the bullets going spare. And because I had the bullets going spare, I decided that they would be best glued into the Bandelier to help create the Ghoul's Bandelier, which goes on something like that. Yeah, if the gun wasn't twisted. There we go, close enough. So that's the Bandelier, which went on, kind of looks the part. It's a little bit short. This comes down a little bit further, but you know what? It's okay. I'm quite happy with it. I made it. I think it came out quite well for something I made on my own. So that's the Bandelier. Now, moving on, there is, of course, the hat. And this hat is also completely inaccurate, but I quite like how it's come out. So, this is an old cowboy hat that I bought in America, but it was one of those cheap Indiana Jones cowboy hats they sell, you know, the ones that don't actually look anything like his hat, with a wire in, and they're kind of wired round, and they go up round. What I did is I firstly unpicked all the thread on it. I'd had it for years, and I didn't wear it anymore, so I picked the thread on it, and I pulled the wire out, which let me make the brim much, much bigger. You can probably see, if you look closely, there's still a stitch line there, so you can kind of see how much, it's added like a whole extra inch. And then I added a new hat band on it. Now, Cooper's is a particular type that I didn't have, but I did have this little strip of leather. So I just stuck on that little bit of leather all the way around. And then I put a little bit there that came off a little bag that something came in. It was like a little drawstring bag, a bit of jewellery or something came in. I cut it off and I stuck it on there to give it that extra look. And then what I did is I used fabric stiffener. You can buy fabric stiffener on Amazon, and it's really good for reshaping hats like this. And I just coated it in the fabric stiffener and completely reshaped it. So I made the brim flat because the brim was all curled up and it was very floppy. To make it rock solid, I put this little kink in the side here because I modelled this on season 2. And this hat's got a slight kink in the side, but the brim has actually gone mostly straight. Made it as straight as I could at the front. Kind of tried to give it the bash as much like his as I could here. And then, of course, I went to the weathering. The weathering, I used a lot of different paints and different colours on it. I used a lot of browns around the rim first to give it a sandy look there. Then I used a sand all over it. Now, Cooper's hat is actually a lot lighter than this because it is the one that he's wearing at the start, again, when he's a cowboy. And it's basically cream, very nearly white, and it's gotten brown over the years. But in season 2, I found this colour is actually quite close to how it's ended up because it does look really brown in a lot of shots. To the extent I was actually really debating over whether or not it was the same hat, because if you've seen it in the first scene in season 2, he doesn't have a hat and he takes a hat off one of the great Khan raiders. And I couldn't tell, is that meant to be his hat that the Khan stole, or is he stealing a new hat? I think it is actually meant to be his hat, but still. So anyway, I went over it with sand to try and lighten it a bit, sand paint. Then I went over with black paint to try and work in the colours and the weathering. And I think it's come out really well. It's nice and stiff now, so that if I do this, the brim stays exactly where I need it to stay. It's still very slightly too small for the Ghoul mask, I will show you later on. Even after I've stretched it, I've expanded it, I've also taken out the inner hat band completely, again unpicked the threads, removed it completely to give it a bit more give. But it's still slightly too small, the brim's slightly too small, but as far as a Ghoul hat goes, I think it's all right. It works, it does the job, okay? Final piece for the actual costume that you need is a pair of gloves. So I just bought some brown leather gloves. Got some Fallout stickers in there, that's fun. Again, I bought them second hand, cheap off vintage, so they were a little bit worn, a little bit battered. Doesn't really matter how worn they are. They are only only wrist gloves. So if you watch carefully in the show, you will occasionally actually see Cooper's skin here, and they don't, as far as I can tell, put any makeup on it to make him look ghoulish. But yeah, so they're just brown gloves. And that kind of completes the Ghoul costume look. Now, I don't know what it looks like on the back at the moment because I've just sewn it all on. Hopefully it looks alright. I did say I was going to mention the Don Pedro, which is the name of his gun. Here is the Ghoul's gun. I don't really know how I can sell you guys on like where to get this one. My friend with a 3D printer 3D printed this for me as a surprise and gave it to me. It's absolutely fantastic. It really looks the part. It kind of really looks like his gun. I'm really thrilled to have it. I'm really grateful to my friend who 3D printed it. But ultimately, I think if you want one of these, you have two options. One is to 3D print it. One is that there is a Nerf gun that looks fairly like his that's on sale, particularly in America, that I've seen some people link and some people discuss. Because I haven't bought it, I don't know much about it. Look at this, it is sliding down, it's not great, is it? Because I haven't bought it, I don't know much about it. But you can get it. If not, look for someone to 3D print them, and you can get a good gun, okay? That's if you want it. I mean, the other option is to a lever action rifle. You can get, like, from most fancy dress shops as a cowboy gun, so you could just have any old revolver down here and carry the lever action rifle if you wanted. Of course, the final part of the Ghoul costume is the mask. I just use the mask from Trick or Treat Studios. I've done a full review of this. I'm going to put the link to the review again in the description below, okay? So that you can see my full review of the mask. There's not much else I can say about it here, but that's the Ghoul mask, which I really like. And then just to finish up, I'm going to do a quick show of what it looks like all on with the mask. I'm going to change the angle so you can see me properly. So, without further ado, let's put in a nice match. There we go, guys. And that is the Ghoul costume as I have it now. Some of you might be saying as well, I'm missing the saddlebag that he carries everywhere. Those are usually really expensive. However, I think I have found one that I can modify into looking like his, but it's not here yet. I haven't finished with it yet. Don't have it for this video. Anyway, hopefully that helped you all. If you managed to sit through it all, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my really awkward posing in that costume. And I will see you all another time. Thank you.